All right, welcome to it. It is time for our first edition in the new year 2024 for Get Real with Ben Bleicher, Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Ambassador Real Estate. I am Jake Sorensen. He is Ben Bleicher. Ben, what's going on? Good to see you in our first edition of 2024.
Happy New Year, big guy.
Happy New Year to you. Did you have a good celebration for the holidays?
We had the quietest New Year's Eve we've had in, I don't even remember.
Intentionally?
Yeah, we didn't do anything. We put sweatpants on and we watched movies, and I don't even know if my wife and I were really even paying attention to when the ball dropped. We didn't watch we may have clicked over to the ball drop in Times Square like for a hot minute.
Come on, man. What happened?
It was a long year, man.
I guess.
Just needed a couple days off. We did the same for Christmas. We hosted Christmas Eve with the family, big dinner, and did nothing on Christmas.
Well,
it was beautiful. You know what?
To each their own. You're here in the new year, so everything's still good. Everything's great. Again, this show, this is your first time tuning in, this is about real estate. We're trying to answer questions. We're trying to help people who are trying to buy houses, to sell houses, who have questions about the whole process. Ben Bleicher has been an expert here for 10 years, 10 plus years, right? At this point?
I will be 10 years old May 1st.
May 1st. So
we're about to celebrate it.
That is a big deal. Ben has been very successful in Lincoln and the surrounding area. And again, if you guys have any questions ever, you can always call or text 402-464-5685. And again, Ben's information, you can go to prg-ne.com or call 402-HOMES for you. Homes for you. All right, let's get to. It was a good year for you guys. Now, we talked about in the previous couple months of doing the show how 2023 was challenging because of the interest rates. Everything was there's inflation. We were dealing with that, but it still was a good year for you, and particularly a couple of your different realtors working under you. Can you go into detail, Ben, about the year that it was, and who stood out for you guys? For you guys.
Well, all my guys stood out. I mean, we've got a rock star team. We had a really good year, especially considering the year prior we had almost double the amount of agents, and somehow did less than we did in 2023. So these guys stepped up. I even had a down year, not by much. I think the year before I did about almost 38 million, which is a lot of houses and commercial property. And then this year I finished out, let's see, what did I hit? I was a little over 31, which is not, I don't think anybody complained about it.
Down.
I don't think most people would whine about selling 31 million.
No, I wouldn't. I'd be happy with that.
Well, I know, but I only like to go upwards. And the team did, which is why I'm not unhappy about it. So the overall, we sold $78 million worth of real estate with 5 people.
Not bad.
No, the average is phenomenal. It's over 15 million for each agent if you do it as an average. So they crushed it. From the top to the bottom, even the guy who did the least amount still did way more than most agents would do. So super proud of all of them. And then my top guy had just a blockbuster year. I mean, he has always kind of hovered between, 13, 14, 15 million, I think is the most he had. And he got to 23 million this year. So I'd love to give him shout outs if that's okay.
I prefer that. It's your show. You do what you want, Ben.
I love it. Okay. Well, so we'll start with me, I guess, just to get me out of the way. So out of the 248 total units and 78 million, I sold 31 million. I've been doing it the longest on the team, obviously. And my client base is extremely established referral wise, which is beautiful. And I try to get all my guys there because, who wants to have to pay for leads their entire career? Yep. They don't. And I don't have to anymore. Thank goodness, because I've done good business and I love my clients as much as they love me, I hope. But so that's where I started. I sold 75 units last year. Danny Pothig was the top guy. He sold 23 million. He actually sold more units than I did. He sold 79. So he had a real business.
Nice work.
Danny did phenomenal. That's any realtor who has any hopes and aspirations would hope hope to even get to 10 million in 1 year. I mean, that is like, and there's lots of them. I know a lot of really, really good top performers, but there's not many over 10. To get over 20, you're in the top, literally probably 1 or 2% in the entire, possibly the entire state, not just Lincoln, probably Omaha too. So that is phenomenal. He did a really good job. And that's why we teamed up. You know, I like to hold people accountable, and I like to make sure they hit their goals, and I make sure they hit their goals. And that's what they want. They don't always like it when we're sitting across from each other talking about why maybe they didn't 1 week, but usually they do the next week because of those conversations, which is why we have them, obviously. Second place went to Mark Salick. Mark's one of my best friends for almost 25 years. Mark got in the business a few years back, and he's been really consistently.
Because of you?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, nice. I kind of talked him into it. Nice. You know, he worked at Honda's Lincoln for, I think, over 20 years. He was there for a long time. Very tenured employee, and they still love him there. And a lot of his clients, some of his and some of mine, have come from there because, and the only reason I know any of them is from him. If I ever got any, it's only because I met him through him. But he did 8,430,000 last year. Phenomenal.
That'll work.
Yeah, 30 units.
That'll do.
So he did average more than 2 closings a month, which is really good. I mean, a lot of guys will go a lot of months of the year at every brokerage in town where they don't have closings every month. So if you have 30, that's pretty good. You know, 2.5 a month.
Not bad.
Tucker Velder is one of our newer agents. He came on at the beginning of last year, and this would have been 23 was his first full 12 months of real estate. I mean, just knocked it out of the park. He also sold 29 units like Mark, but he did 6,800,000, almost got to 7. Tucker's 25 years old. Spectacular. I mean, part of the reason that a lot of people don't do as well that young is because, one, a lot of their friends haven't bought houses yet by 25, which is a lot of your client base is who you know, like who's your circle of influence. But also just because you don't have the experience to get some of the people that are buying their second and third house, they may not look at somebody who's 25 and be like, that's what I want, because they might say he's too young. He broke that mold last year. I mean, insane year. 7 million is 6.8 is just, that's very good. I mean, he probably set some records for age and years in the business for doing it. And then Andy Sprick did 5,758,000, which again is like huge. It was also his first full year. He started last year at a different brokerage and approached us around the same time as Tucker did and just said, hey, I don't feel like I'm getting what I need where I'm at. And he loved the brokerages that he just didn't, he needed the push.
Gotcha.
And my reputation must precede me a little bit.
I can see that, Ben. I can see that.
Yeah, a little bit. And so he came on, and I think he went from doing somewhere between 1 and 2 his first year to tripling that to getting to 6. So that is spectacular. And all the guys have different time restraints, obviously. Andy's got a few kids. Tucker doesn't have any kids yet, so he's got all the free time in the world. He is engaged. Mark has kids. I have kids. Danny has. The fact that Danny did 23 million and his wife had a baby last year, and he's got a very young child at home is just, I can't say enough good stuff.
Danny.
All the guys are just killers, and they all set their goals higher for this year. We set goals. We try to go over them a lot. I mean, we meet twice a week, but then we try to do quarterly. We try to talk about it monthly if we can, but definitely quarterly.
So let's pause there again. Congrats to the guys working on you for an incredible year. Just applaud yourself for what a job well done in a tough year with the rate so high, and again, in everything going against you and having less realtors to work with. You guys still killed it. So congrats to everybody there. Absolutely. But you mentioned something there, Ben, about goals and goal setting, and I know it always changes from year to year, as it should. But as you look at 2024. And go back to even the start of 2023, if you can remember that far back, how do you, as a leader of your guys' group, how do you determine what are realistic goals to reach and how to get to those specific goals? Is it a monthly thing? Is it yearly? How do you set goals
Well,
for your team and yourself?
It certainly is seasonal, but it's more from a perspective of just being aware when things are hot and cold, um, and looking at trying to have an even stream of business, which comes down to really sort of regulating the waves. I mean, so when we have closings, so say you have a closing in April, we assume that the lead or the client was generated probably 90 days prior. From inception of someone saying, "Hey, I want to buy a house," to when it actually gets bought and closed is usually 90 days.
Yeah.
So we look back and see where these waves are each year, and we have really good tracking. We've got a very, very, very specific system, and I probably won't get into everything we use because some of it's kind of proprietary. But we do track, and we can see each month, and we can see year over year where they're at. I mean, for me, I can look back 10 years and I can see exactly where the holes are, where I'm slacking.
Interesting.
Or and so we strive for a little bit of a wavy line to get us where we want to go, rather than these waves where we're busy and then not busy and busy, because that'll burn these guys out. So that's a huge focus of ours. As far as how we set the goals, always higher than the year before. Right?
By a percentage or how? Like units, how do you assess that?
There's a lot that goes into it. I mean, generally it's a percentage increase, but it's also what makes you feel good, because you got to have something that you're confident you can hit.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to tell them not to just pull a number out of their butt. I tell them to like dig deeper when they're trying to figure out where they want to be, so they can make sure it's attainable. If their goal is, and sometimes the goal is not even volume. Sometimes it's just units. They say, "Hey, I sold 30 houses this year," which a couple of them did. I want to increase that by 10. Okay, well, where do you work it in, and where's a smart time to do it? And that gets pretty tough. But one of our tracking systems, we have a CRM, which is for tracking the leads and all the clients that we have. It says all of our interactions we have with them, when the client's birthday is, like every little touching point we need to know. But then we have a sort of like an accounting program that like keeps track of every transaction,
There you go.
how much they made off it, how much the team made off it, what the cost of the lead was, because that, I spend a lot of money on not just leads, but advertising and things that all lead to us all being successful. And so we have to know the cost of the goods, right? Like it doesn't matter what you make if you don't know how much it cost you to get there.
Right.
And so we track all that for the guys and for myself, obviously. Got off tangent a little bit, but
just again, goal setting in terms of again, it's. I think people always question, and every business is different, whether it's real estate, whether it's radio, which we're doing right now, in terms of how do we assess listenership and sales and clients. It can be either viewed as monthly or quarterly or yearly, seasonally. There's a lot of different ways to assess this in terms of.
You should look at all those things.
Yeah, you should. You really should.
They all matter.
It shouldn't just be one and say we go by one and that's it. It should be a totality thing, and you guys apparently are doing that. That's your business.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job, and we've got a lot of support staff that goes into it. I mean, again, we've got us 5 guys doing it, but we've got my assistant Jen, we've got Larry who does all of our marketing, and lead capturing through like SEO on Google, Facebook ads, targeted, retargeting. I don't know if you know what that is. That's a whole nother thing with Google, where you can go one place and I can follow you around and put my ad back in front of you later. It's interesting.
I've been targeted by that before from people, I'm sure.
Everybody has.
Yeah.
Well, how many times have you said to your spouse, and we have no way to get into like Alexa, but like I know you've looked something up or she's looked something up.
I was just talking about this.
Right. And then all of a sudden it's in your Facebook feed and you're like, what the hell?
How'd this happen?
Yeah. Well,
how did that happen?
Retargeting. It's Google and Amazon have some creepy powers, and why not harness
maybe you don't like it, maybe you do, but for you it works, so whatever.
It does. Well, it's intuitive. I mean, it's trying to give you what it thinks you want to see. So if you show it trends, it's going to keep showing up. That's why on the Facebook ads you can hit X and tell it why you don't want to see it, because you may have already bought it, or you may have already like stopped showing me these commando underwear that I know you're looking at.
Oh
Big.
yeah, oh yeah.
I already bought them.
Big
You
into
don't-
that, I'm
you,
sure.
You don't have to keep telling me to buy this. I already bought it. Anyway, same with housing. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, you're just going to reset. This is he's Ben Bleicher. This is Get Real with Ben Bleicher, a professional realty group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Ambassador Real Estate. You can always get a hold of him at 402 Homes for You or PRG-NE.com. You can always comment on this show after the fact on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, or you can always text the text line 402-464-5685. You're looking again at the year ahead, Ben, in 2024, and I love January because even though the weather, it's snowing outside, it's freezing, it provides a fresh start, a fresh perspective. I mean, going from the 31st of December to January 1st is just one day, but it is the start of a calendar year, and there's some things that you are optimistic about regarding the year ahead in terms of interest rates, because the story in 2023, and not just real estate, but all sorts of businesses and ventures, has been the high interest rates. But you're saying there could be potentially good news coming down the road for that.
Well, I mean, if the feds are any indication, and who knows whether they're right or wrong or being truthful, you never know.
A forecast is a forecast.
Right. Well, the Fed did announce in December that they were pleased with inflation. They also look at unemployment because they directly correlate with a lot of things together. They were happy with what was happening with supply and demand as well. And so they said they're not going to raise the rate again. See if that happens or not.
Okay.
But the big thing they forecasted was that they were planning to lower the rate 3 times in 24, which, I mean, almost immediately sparked a little bit of something. It's still not gangbusters yet, and we can kind of get into what I'm saying and what I think is going to happen. I don't have all the answers to this one because we haven't seen this before. Not this particular scenario. This is not like '08. This is completely different. But the forecast looks good. Things have leveled out a little bit and become a little more calm, but I feel like it could change really easily. Like if rates went into the 5s, I think it'd be gangbusters again, even though that's nothing close to the 2s and 3s we had.
They're at where right now?
We had a guy 2 Fridays ago who locked in a VA rate in the high 5s, which is good.
It is good.
VA and FHA temporarily, or not temporarily, a lot of times they will step up and be really competitive to probably spark things a little bit. But conventional generally is going to be above those because they're not government loans, and the government does things that, benefit things they're doing, obviously.
Pause for 1 second. In terms of, for those who are not involved in buying or selling in in the housing market in 2023, you say someone just purchased in the high 5s for rates. What was the worst it got to in 2023 from your recollection?
Low 8s.
Low 8s. I mean, there was projects across Lincoln that got paused that were supposed to be things going up that we hope that it happens this year. But the reason was because interest rates were too high. It was simply just not smart. It was not fathomable to make it happen.
Oh, and even this is not just in residential either. This is commercial too. I mean, I have a client who's close to me who I'm trying to relocate them right now. And we were going to build them a brand new building. The landlord was going to give them a favorable rate that we thought. And we talked about it for a couple of months. And all of a sudden, and this was actually this year, not last year. So this is in the last couple of weeks. The guy who owns the land, we sat down and had a meeting, and he just said, we got to put this on hold. I actually can't build this for you and not give you a lease rate that's not obnoxious, like over $20 a foot. And so we paused and said, okay, we'll revisit this when rates come down, because it's just not it's not affordable for him, which makes it not affordable for us to do the project. So you're right. There's a lot of things on hold, and a lot of people that, I mean, think of this kind of gloomy situation. Think if you started looking at the beginning of 23 and you wanted something specific, so the process is going to take longer. You're being a little more picky about what you wanted to buy. and then halfway through the process, all of a sudden the rates go from 3 to 4 to 7 to 8.
Yep.
You may have been approved for a $500,000 house, and now you're approved for a $300,000 house.
That changes some things up.
That's
I feel like big change.
Yeah, that's
significant.
painful.
Yep.
So it took a lot of people out of the market, understandably. And some people who can still afford it, we kind of have to remind them that, hey, eventually these rates will settle back down to what I predict will be somewhere between 4 and hopefully low 5% interest rates, which is more affordable. And the only reason this is not affordable, I mean, you look back to, like my dad's first house that he bought in Iowa City when he was in med school. The house was probably 30 grand and the interest rate was like 16%, but it didn't matter because the house was 30 grand. So really where we've had the biggest issue with this hurting people is that inflation went up and interest rates went up. So things are worth more money now. Just everything has gone up. I mean, you can't go to the grocery store and fill up the bottom 6 inches of your cart without spending $100, whereas 6 years ago you could fill your entire cart and probably spend $200. So everything's inflated, including housing and including the interest rate.
So again, it's not official, but you said there's potential that the rates could drop 3 different times in 2024.
Yep.
Let's look at let's say the first time happens sometime soon, the next month or two, by March possibly. How does that affect you and your team in terms of phone calls coming your way from both buyers and sellers?
Well, I think sellers are a little apprehensive right now, and if things did pick up, it would probably spark quite a few calls from them. I have had a few more the last week or so than I had in the last week of December. Buyers, it would stir things up big time. There's a million people sitting on the fence that want to switch houses or they want to buy their first house that are just like, I'll wait. Like to them, it's just not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an argument for that too. I mean, rents are also at historic highs. So, you're paying more there too. Is it smarter to at least own the place so that you're earning equity off it? Like there's a lot of different ways this can spin direction wise, but, a lower interest rate would spark everything, which is why we haven't seen it yet, because they're trying to gradually ease us into this so that we don't get into a situation like we were in the last 3.5 years.
Again, he is Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Ambassador Real Estate. Call him and his team at 402-HOMES-FOR-YOU. Visit the website, prg-ne.com. And again, you can get a hold of us on the show at 402-464-5685, or you can comment on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter. And you can also watch this on Allo 961 across the state, statewide on Allo. So we'll take a quick break. We'll come back with more. Again, we're talking real estate. It's our first show of 2024. Things are fresh. We're excited. We're happy. We'll have more next on Get Real with Ben Bleicher on 937 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. All right, we are back again here on Get Real with Ben Bleicher. We talk real estate on this show. Ben is with the Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Ambassador Real Estate. You can listen to the show statewide, worldwide. If you're in Washington, D.C., if you're in Panama, I don't care where you're at. You can listen to this. You can watch this anywhere in the world. Ben, does that scare you or does that excite you?
I hear I have a lot of fans in China watching.
A lot of China viewers for Ben. Again,
Yep.
You can check us out, the podcast, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you find podcasts. Also, you can stream us there or watch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Allo 961 statewide in Nebraska. Again, you can always call Ben and his team at 402-HOMES-4U or go to prg-ne.com to find more information, or if you want to just get more contact with Ben, that's the way to get there. But, all right, we want to talk about, speaking of that, it's always important, Ben, for growth for you and your team and your squad in general. Your recruitment's important for you. So, this is obviously people try to find new opportunities sometimes to start off fresh in the new year, trying to find a new profession. For you, recruiting is important. So what do you want people to know in terms of what it's like to work in real estate for your team potentially? Just kind of give us the people what is important for recruitment.
Well, this is an interesting topic that I'm probably not going to give the answer that you think I'm going to give.
Okay.
Recruiting is important to me, but is not a priority for me. The best hires I've ever had are people who approached us directly. Andy came to us directly. Well, I shouldn't say, I don't want to discount that because Mark's my best friend and I approached him.
Okay.
But the best guys that we've had since me and Mark started doing this, because Mark was, he's my longest tenure guy for sure that I have. But since we have moved to Berkshire Hathaway, and sort of changed the dynamic a little bit from when we were at Woods Brothers, the best guys I've had are guys that approached us. We don't advertise that we're hiring. We don't really approach anybody anymore saying, hey, not to say that I haven't had conversations with people that I like in the business saying, hey, if you're ever unhappy, look me up, because I've had that conversation. But and Danny and I talked about kind of joining forces a couple years before it happened. Some things are opportunistic from a timeline standpoint, as much as they are from just the idea of doing it. Like sometimes it's just got to be the right timing.
Mm-hmm.
But Andy and Tucker both called me. I hadn't met either one of them. And obviously I have some sort of reputation for being kind of pushing people a little bit and things like that. And
you're a motivator, Ben. Come on.
I am. I try to be. I do try to be. But to the point where I want to help people, but they have to want to have help. They have to want it. Or I found that almost everybody that I've chosen to do business with, where I've approached them, or where they haven't gone out of their way to try to get on the team, has not worked out. So, and that's probably part my personality. But everybody that's come, again, look, the proof's in the pudding, right? 5 of us did $80 million worth of real estate last year.
That means something. That's significant.
Yes. I have many friends who are in the business that have teams that have 10 or more people that do less than that each year. So, but to get back to it, so you probably want to know what I would look for in someone. And I can even talk about what I would not want in someone, because that sort of, they're both important. Anybody. So again, the first thing is kind of them. They don't have to seek us out necessarily for us to want them. But that's an important part, is they have to want to make a change. And I know this from my previous experience, and I've seen other brokerages. Generally, the training and motivation you're going to get from the majority of the brokerages in town is, hey, welcome to our brokerage. Like, we have these resources, we have meetings once a week to talk about what we see in the market. But what you don't see is accountability, because we're in a 1099 business where everybody's independent contractors. Like, you don't want to work hard, they're not going to put a gun to your head. And I don't put a gun to my guy's head, but just, I'm just saying, like, there's really nobody that's driving it and forcing them to like do activities that are going to make them successful. And again, I don't care what people do or don't do in my business. I prefer they all be professional and know what they're doing. But all the other guys who don't work for us can do whatever they want. I just care that my guys are doing the best business they can and making the most money they can. It's not all about the money. It's about enjoyment, and we have a good time doing it. But if you're going to do this and do it right and have it be a career for you, and figure out a way to retire before you're 70 and things like that, you have to do it. I mean, how many people do you know that are 50 or 60 that have no retirement?
No, yeah, quite a few.
I bet you more than you think. Yep. I'm sure there's people that that are my age that don't have anything even started yet. And so that's part of our accountability. Is I'm not just trying to make them sell more or I want them to succeed. I want to help them get to like the next level. And if they don't want to get there, we won't probably spend much time trying to get them there.
At the same time, though, Ben, I think this is interesting, really, for any job, whether it's sales job. I don't care what profession you're in. Sometimes you can be a slow starter, and I think people want to go out there and say, I sold 8 houses my first month. That's just not realistic. Maybe it could happen, unrealistic, but there's obviously different speeds that people operate with in terms of getting off the floor right away. And how do you, as a boss in this role, and someone trying to help out, obviously, how do you evaluate both those circumstances? How to maybe tell somebody, hey, you're doing a great job, that's crushing it, and let them continue to build them up, but also somebody that's maybe a slow starter in the profession.
Every situation is obviously circumstantial, as far as whether they have families or other obligations. I personally think that the business I'm in has too many part-timers and too many husbands or wives of someone else who's a physician or just crushing it. So they sort of take this on as, well, real estate's easy, or, I can do this part-time. We highly avoid that. This is not a part-time job. It's terrible that people think that. Anybody who knows me or has dealt with me, and I have people tell me this all the time, is like, you're always working. We are, and it's fine. It's something that has to be accepted. And it's something we would highly take into consideration on whether we'd even hire someone. If somebody calls me and says I'm a single mom or dad and I have 6 kids, probably immediately just not a good fit, because we're just going to know that they're not going to be able to. We do our best, and this is why I spend as much money as I do a month on marketing and stuff to feed these guys so their funnel is full all the time. But our particular business model is not one for the part-timers or for the faint of anything, because it is, we do high volume. But, I've got multiple guys on my team who made 6 figures last year, and that changes people's lives. I mean, you can start buying money. Yeah, you can start buying rental properties, pay your house off, not have auto debt, but it's hard work. You have to work hard. You know that. You work hard.
Mm-hmm.
You've done a ton for yourself.
Yep.
You have to do that stuff. And it's fine that there's lots of people out there that aren't like that. That's okay. That's the majority, right?
Yep.
Probably. And that's okay, because if everybody was like me, this world would be a kind of scary place, wouldn't it?
Not everyone can be a real estate agent. It just can't happen.
Be a little intense.
Yep.
No, well, not everybody can want to work as hard and
crazy hours.
Right, exactly. But real estate's a very important thing. I mean, we're helping people with a really important task that has really negative implications if it's not done well. So our standard is really high. High risk, high reward. And it's the same with our guys, and not necessarily from a risk standpoint, but from a work your butt off, you'll do well standpoint.
So the question would be then, Ben, again, you mentioned the people who have been successful have reached out to you instead of you pursuing them in recruiting. If someone watching this, listening to this is curious, saying, I've always been interested in real estate and I want to, learn more, how can they get a hold of you specifically or your team?
Anybody can call us or text us, and just go through the 402 Homes for You number. I mean, there's direct prompts to get to someone specifically about things like that. But yeah, I mean, if anybody's been considering it, certainly reach out. And if anybody in the business is listening to this that wants to join, again, we're not generally hiring. We're not. We're always in growth mode, but it's usually internally. We're trying to figure out how we can all better ourselves
Sure.
to do more business without having more people. Again, because 5 of us can do 80 million.
It's pretty good.
Right. But the goal is necessarily not to hire 5 more so we can do 80 more million. It's like, how can we all maximize where we're at and make it the most efficient? I mean, I hope all my guys, by the time they've been with me for 5 years, all have their own assistant and have that problem to deal with, as well as others, because they're doing so well. Go ahead.
Again, you're listening to Get Real with Ben Bleicher of Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Ambassador Real Estate, 402 Homes for You to get a hold of him. Also, prg-ne.com. Before we get to break, every single business, radio, even like a grocery store, every business in the world has different trends that hit throughout the year, throughout the month. So I'm curious, when you look at real estate and the housing market in general, is there any new trends you are tracking or curious about as we get deeper into 2024? Kind of a broad question, but it could be something that maybe you thought of that is popular that we have not seen, or maybe that's coming back that we haven't seen for a long time.
I will say, and this is the most striking and obvious trend that I've seen the last 2 weeks, is that, and I don't know what caused it, I really don't, is that a lot of our clients and a lot of people looking at our listings are looking for deals right now, which I don't know what would drive that or not. It's bizarre. I mean, the interest rate has been where it's been for 2 to 3 weeks now. But the last couple weeks, I mean, just out of the woodwork, we've seen people coming that it seems like their only focus is like finding something they can get a deal on, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I personally look at it a little differently, and I figure if I can get a deal on it, it's because there's something wrong with it. Yep. Or like, it's usually not what I'm looking for. But we all have different mindsets. Like I want to find the best thing I can, and just hope I get a fair price on it. But most people's attitudes is literally, I mean, I list a lot more than I help buyer wise, just because of where I'm at in my career and the way my referrals flow in. But we have had just a huge upswing in people looking at our older listings right now with that mindset that, oh, hey, this has been on for 2 months. I'm here because I feel like I can get a deal. It's a weird trend. It's working for some, but a lot of people are holding their ground, which as the sellers should hold their ground a little bit. I don't think it's desperate quite yet, and I think that things are kind of on the up and up. So
always curious to see how the trends change throughout the year. I mean, there's every year, again, just in life, generally in social media, there's always weird trends that come up, things that come back from the past, things that are new. And I'm curious to follow how this goes in your business and your market with real estate. We'll take one final break. Again, this is Get Real with Ben Bleicher, a Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Ambassador Real Estate. We'll have one more segment on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. All right, we are back for one final time on our first edition of 2024 on Get Real with Ben Bleicher, a professional realty group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Ambassador Real Estate. I am Jake Sorensen. He, of course, is Ben Bleicher. You can always get a hold of Ben Bleicher and his team at 402 Homes for You, or go online to prg-ne.com. If you missed any of the show so far, you can check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple, wherever you find your podcast. Watch this replay on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Allo 961 across the state of Nebraska. And tell your friends. The best news, you can tell, if you watch this, enjoy, tell your friends. Share this. Share it. Please share it. This is supposed to be informational for everybody, and again, something we can help people out. And if you have questions in real estate on just anything, basic questions, big questions, Ben can answer that. We can address them on the show. So always leave a comment if you're watching this after the replay on YouTube or anywhere, and we will certainly address that for future shows upcoming.
Ask questions. Tell us what you want to hear about, who you want to see on the show. That's our kind of next step, is having some guests on here.
That'd be great. So we've gone through interest rates, hopefully going down here soon, maybe 3 times in the calendar year. We'll see. Cross your fingers. That'd be great news for you and all buyers across the not just the state, but the country, the world in general. But for those who don't know, and they've always been curious, obviously people would view the common buying market as probably like March to October is probably, I think, the common person's view of that. So is that a myth, Ben? And if not, what do the first couple months of the year look like for you and your team in general?
That is a myth.
See, that's why we have these shows. We dispel myths on this show.
That is the prime listing time, for obvious reasons, due to the fact that we live in a state that has snow and fun stuff like that, which after tomorrow, we'll see if anybody wants to list their house in the next month or so. I doubt it.
It's a light, fluffy snow. Come on.
Yeah, well, we'll see if it'll depend if it's the 3 inches or the 8 inches. That's
could take pictures. Looks better to have snowy pictures, right? Looks kind of cool. Makes it comforting.
Nope.
Dispelling myths.
Maybe if Santa Claus is shopping for a house, but
okay.
not people here usually. No, it is a myth. That is I would say that May through probably August, September is the best time to list your house, because we get the best photos, they're in the best light, and that is how people generally make a decision whether they want to come see a house, is how do the photos look. But there's also the most competition that time of year. So if you have a $300,000 house, you're competing with a ton more $300,000 houses. Where if you have a good product to sell and you can sell it when there's not as much supply, sometimes you get more money. So there's not a right or a wrong answer here. I don't think there's anything wrong with buying a house in December. I've had as busy a Januaries as I've had Julys. Literally, I've had 25, 30 closings in January before, which is what I usually see in July and August. But again, we're in a place that has four very defined seasons, and depending how those go, depends how the market's going to be, and none of us have a magic ball to know. So should you wait or not wait on that? No, but you should call me and we should talk about it, because there's definitely a strategy to be had with every house and every situation, and that's the first place to kind of start things off is, what goal do we want to accomplish, when and how do we do it? So this will serve as a fresh reminder. Don't call me when you want to list next week. I mean, if that's your situation, you have to, please call me rather than somebody else. But if you even think that it's in your future, especially if it's in the next 6 months, call now. You're not wasting my time. You're not wasting any of my guys' time. Let's have a conversation up front. We would much rather help you strategically plan this than have you plan it, not knowing all the factors that we know, and call us when you're ready to go. Like, you generally would just fare better if you call us a little bit ahead of time and let us help you know what and what not to do to achieve what you want to accomplish.
Yep, I see that again. We dispel myths on these shows.
Mythbusters.
I ask questions.
You do kind
say?
of look like one of the guys on Mythbusters.
I'm pale. I get that. I understand that. It's a common joke here at the studio. The ticket, that's fine. So for those who, again, like for example, my dad's an accountant. He's got to go to, he's been doing CPA stuff for 40 years, but every year he's got to go to classes to learn new things about the accounting nature. I mean, I'm curious about you. What is even though you've been around, May 1st is 10 years in the business for you. 10 years. What is a yearly look at you in terms of training that you go through to make sure you are up to date on the current things in the real estate market?
Never ends. Twice a week. Every week.
Twice a week?
104 meetings a year. Pending holidays and things. But, those don't even always matter. I texted all my guys when we got that snowstorm last week and said, Monday morning, you guys want to come in and deal with this, or do you want to take a Monday off? And every single one of them said, I want to be in.
How about that?
Love it.
How about that?
I love it. And not that I didn't want to be in. I just didn't want to put them out. Every one of them, like, instantly messaged back in our group text being like, I'm going to be there. Cool. So, no, it takes a ton. And your dad probably learns not just one class a year. I mean, I know your dad well. I'm sure he's constantly learning. Real estate is probably a more moving target than accounting, but it's always moving. And so, and trends go from week to week. That's why we meet twice a week. One of them is just Monday meeting to kind of kick the week off, and Wednesday is always sales training. And it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but it's necessary.
I see. I doubt anybody would have thought you guys meet twice a week on that kind of stuff, which is great. I mean, that is more up to date than anybody, more up to date than anyone.
That's just in person. I meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday with management and our marketing team to talk about that. Like, there's a lot of meetings. There's a lot of moving parts running in the background that most people probably would not think are happening, but that's why most people aren't doing as much business as we do. Either they don't want to deal with having to meet that much,
and that's why we have a radio show that's on TV also, that people can learn from Ben, who's doing, again, 10 years and May 1st. We're just shy of 10 years in real estate, building a successful team and being one of the top realtors in all of the state of Nebraska, of course, Lincoln as well. So that'll do it for us. Again, if you guys want to ask questions, please, when you see this on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch or Twitter, ask questions. We always go back and we try to answer the questions as well as we can. For those, you can always, again, call Ben and his team at 402-HOMES for you, or visit the website prg-ne.com. If you are watching this or listening to this on replay, again, you can always text us also at 402-464-5685. We will certainly take your questions again for the next edition of this. But Ben, it was fun. Our first one of the calendar year. We have way more to come.
See you guys next time.
Yes. All right. That's it for us. Again, it is Get Real with Ben Bleicher, a professional realty group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Ambassador Real Estate. For Ben Bleicher, I am Jake Sorensen. We will see you again soon. Have a good night.